What's up, SE Nation? Ramsey here. What is an SMB SE versus an Enterprise SE? Now, before we dig deep into that, my name is Ramsey Majab. As I mentioned earlier, I'm a sales engineer out of Ottawa, Canada, and I help aspiring sales engineers become sales engineers and current sales engineers upskill their skills. Upskill their skills, as sales engineers as well. And I wanted to cover this question because a lot of people ask me, hey, what is the best role for an SE? Or what does an SE do? Let me zoom out a little bit. What does an SE actually do? And the answer is it depends. And part of the things that it depends on is are you an enterprise SE or are you an SMB SE? Now, you might be asking yourself, what is an SMB? And that's a good question. If you're not asking yourself, you should. If you already know the answer, that's great. So SMB is small, medium business, small to medium sized business. And I'll flash the Gartner definition of SMB somewhere on the screen. But in general, as the name implies, small to medium businesses are small to medium businesses. They have less revenue than enterprise. Enterprise could be in the millions or billions. SMBs are less. So maybe 1 to 5 million, maybe less, maybe more. So it's also the mentality more than the revenue. It's the amount of people working on an SMB versus the amount of revenue that it builds. An enterprise is basically a big company. Some company that's been around for a while, that's established. They know what they're doing. So SMB businesses could turn into enterprise at a later date. So startups are very small businesses and they don't have any money to pay for stuff, usually speaking. So a little bit bigger than that is an SMB. Some companies stay as small to medium for the rest of their existence, and some grow, like Amazon grew into the Amazon we know today. The reason sales engineering is different is because of those differences between small and enterprise. Let me refer back to my notes. So what I want to say is enterprise, larger organization, SMB is smaller organization. The big thing about SMBs is that they may not have an official buying process. So they're just winging it. Every time they need to buy something, they do some research, call some companies. For example, my wife, she had a business where she does informational cards, educational cards that teach people Arabic, French, and English. Because we're Lebanese, in case you're wondering. So she downloaded a white paper from HubSpot while she's doing her research, and a salesperson there, or a combo salesperson SE, called her and tried to sell her on HubSpot. Now, she's not a small to medium business, she's a one-person business, she's a solopreneur at the time. So that's even smaller, but it was one person doing both sales and sales engineering. As you get bigger, the roles might continue to be combined, or it could break up and now you'd have a salesperson or you'd have a sales engineer. The problem is if you're calling companies like my wife's, where it was just one person, well, you're dealing with one decision maker, for one, who may not know everything. Like, they were talking to her about HubSpot and the value, but she didn't understand what they were saying because her expertise is not in that world. So it was a little bit more hand-holding for a single decision maker. She had no one to fall back to. And there's only so many calls in the day you can do. You can't go visit someone like my owner of my wife's company, even if it's a little bit bigger, even if they have 30 people, 40 people, 100 people in there. So it's basically mostly from the office, and you're doing call after call after call. So when you look at an SE who works as for SMB customers, it's mostly an inside sales engineer role. Whether it's combined with sales or not, that could be also another factor. But let's take pure sales engineers who work for customers who are SMB, otherwise known as commercial, because it's more of a commercial deal, where you're just calling one after another. The SEs coming in doing a demo after another. You might be doing demos all day, and the discovery is non-existent. You don't have time. The salesperson might do several discoveries if they want to close, but the SE, they come in, do a demo, leave, and that's it. You can do some disco demo. You're not there to build relationships with the customers. If anything, you're building enough trust to get the next appointment. If it's a larger customer, for example. Again, you're dealing with one decision maker who may or may not know what they need, which is a little bit difficult when you only have, you can't build a relationship with them. It's hard to be consultative. It's more of a commercial, like, just sell me some licenses so I can get to work. So it's very transactional and focused on price. They're very price sensitive. Even if, like, hey, you pay me $100 today, you make back $200, which is 100% return on investment. I may not have the $100 to pay you today. So I would take something where I'd pay $50 and get $25 in return, versus pay $100 and get another $100 back. And it's usually a junior position. So it's a good thing to target if you want to break into sales engineering, because especially if the company has both SMBs and enterprise, because you can move from one to the other after you prove yourself. And you'd have to guide the customer through their buying process and convince that one person to buy. Now, when we're talking about enterprise, bigger company, decisions are not made by one person. They're made by consensus. There's usually 5-6 people deciding whether it's a user manager, director, whatever the level is, or multiple users and manager. For SMB, you don't travel. You just sit at home, which could be a good thing. It's a lower salary role than it is for enterprise, generally speaking. And I already mentioned you cannot build relationship. By the way, my notes are right here, which is what I'm looking at. So now, when you're talking about enterprise, longer sales cycle. It's not a transactional thing. You're building relationships. You're working with a customer. You're being consultative. You're doing a discovery with them, multiple discoveries potentially. You're doing a demo, proof of concept. You're building their relationship after they buy, because they could continue to buy more stuff, and you can continue to solve more problems for them. So if you build relationships that way, it works very well. What else? And sometimes it's hard to get hold of those decision makers. By the way, like, if you work with governments, those are enterprise, if you will. It's even slower sales cycle, even much harder to get in touch with the decision makers, because they might just send contractors whose jobs are dependent on whether they or not they buy from you. They might not want to buy from you because that will cancel their job. So there's kind of conflict here. But it is important to build relationships. You would have to visit customers, whether you travel, like fly somewhere, or drive. I drive. Even now with COVID, we're getting used to it. We get to drive 20 minutes to my customer sites. They're all within 20 minutes. But colleagues in my own company have to travel, like fly for 4 hours, like a 4-hour flight out west or out east or whatever it is. So there's a little more flying, a little bit more like physically meeting customers. So it depends on what you want. Do you want to travel or not? If you want to travel, then you might want to get a role where customers are geographically dispersed. If you don't want to travel, you might want to get customers where they're geographically in the same area. For example, Ottawa, Canada, the Bay Area, New York, Chicago. These are all where a lot of companies are together, and you don't have to travel as much. What else is there? Oh, okay. So yeah, it's like, if I were to summarize this in 2 words, I don't know if it's 2 words, around 2 words, in the vicinity of 2 words. Maybe that's more of a salesperson speak, because it could be 10 words. But anyways, for SMBs, inside sales engineers, demo after demo. Enterprise, consultative. Yeah, I'll just leave it there. That's a good way to end. If you need help, if you're trying to get a job as a sales engineer or trying to upskill, check out the SE hotline. It is there for you to help you achieving your goals, whatever they are, in the realm of sales engineering. I'm not going to help you become a doctor or anything like that, unless Yeah, no, I'm not going to help you become a doctor. Anyways, that's it for me. I'm going to stop rambling. Get back to work. Peace.